Hey, welcome to the opening episode of Liberty and Cocktails with Carl Higbee. In a minute, we'll be joined by Anthony Scaramucci to kick this thing off, but first, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Carl Higbee. You can also find us on iTunes or go to www.libertyandcocktails.com to sign up. Well, let's get this show on the road. Mr. Scaramucci, thanks for sitting down with me. I appreciate
you got to call me Anthony Higbee, okay? Because or you can call me Scaramucci or Mooch. You know what I mean? That's my dad, Mr. Scaramucci.
I figured I'd launch in, be a little bit respectful at first, but no, I appreciate you.
I want you to be as debauched as you actually are. Okay, I don't need the respect. Right?
Give me a little bit of credit, you know. I appreciate you, Mooch, helping me launch this podcast because it's something I want to actually let people know who I really am. You know, there's a lot of stuff swirling around the media, a lot of stuff around me, and this is something that's important for me to tell all sides of the story.
Well, look, I'm a firm believer of that. I've been a victim of fake news. I've been a victim of real news where I've made mistakes, and I've gotten myself fired from the White House. I've been around the block a few times, and I think you're a terrific guy, and so it's an honor to be on your podcast. And the other thing is, you know what, man, thank you for your service. You're a real American, and we're in the fight of our lives. Okay, we've got a civil war going on inside the country, the war of words, polemics, polarization, and we got a war going on outside the country. And so we got to bring it together. And so I love the title of your podcast, and I love the theme of who you are as a person.
Yeah, Liberty and Cocktails. It is
the first word for America is united, right?
Right.
United. So we have to figure out how to create more unity.
Well, that's the whole principle is, we with Liberty and Cocktails, to have the liberty to discuss free topics and things that may, like the First Amendment doesn't give you the right to not be offended. I do want people to, somewhat speak out of their comfort zone, but I want to be civil enough about it to have cocktails. Half my family's liberal, and we can't even sit at the same table anymore.
I got to tell you some really fun stuff. Okay, I'm outside on Park Avenue. I'm on the phone. Two people come by, they want to take a selfie. One guy comes by, he hands me his business card, and one guy comes by, he goes, "You're a fucking asshole." And I go, "Oh." And so, I'm like, well, at least I haven't been kicked out of a restaurant yet.
Yeah.
I mean, people are nuts, man.
They are.
Crazy.
Ironically, the first time I ever, was, on the campaign, the first time I ever really got confronted in public, this guy made some cheap comment, ran across the street. I'm like, you don't even stick around to hear my response, dude. Right. But that's what we're fighting against. We're fighting against a group of, proverbial fighting, a group of people who just, they want to dish out their narrative. They don't want to take anything back. Like what would happen with me? CNN published the stories. A lot of it, what I said, some of it was out of line. Some of it I regret. Some of it I apologize for. But some of it I stand by. And I want people to know that if they had played 3 minutes on either side of that, they would have gotten a completely different version of what CNN portrayed. So.
Well, but you're a friend of the president's, and so the first move is when you're a friend of the president's, you've supported the cause, they operationalize against you. I had a situation with CNN where a couple of guys, I'm friends with those guys, no problem, but a couple of guys at CNN wrote a fake news story about me. I had to get the stuff bleach bit from the internet. CNN made the decision to fire those 3 people because it was literally that egregious. Wow. I had another situation where I'm on with Chris Cuomo. I slip up and I say the following. I say, hey, in the 5,000 years of Earth's history, comma, I mean human history, and they clip it and they say Scaramucci is a whatever they call it, like you're a creationist,
Bible denier.
He thinks that the Earth's only 5,000 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, made a mistake on the TV, and that went viral, and it was nonsensical. So I get it. Unfortunately, we're all victims of it, and what we just have to do is be like the human Pac-Man. You're probably too young to remember Pac-Man.
No, I remember. I actually had a Pac-Man machine.
You played it retro, but I'm insane. Yeah. I like to be a human Pac-Man. I just got to eat through everything and just get over it.
That's something that
not let it bother me.
Yeah, something's always impressed me with you on the campaign trail is like you were just take no prisoners, go go go. Like nothing affected you. Just front side focus, mission accomplished.
Yeah, I make mistakes though. I needed more message discipline when I was in the White House. I needed to recognize that a reporter, because I knew his family and my dad was very tight with his father, I sort of translated that relationship into him and me. I thought he was going to protect me on something I was saying to him. I was literally just joking with him if you listen to the tape.
I've heard, yeah.
And it got totally taken out of context, and that was used as a way to blow me out of White House. But that's fine. I'm here. I'm back at my company. We're talking from my company. I've got 70 people at work here and $10 billion under management. It's all good. Life,
jobs.
My life is an improbable story. I mean, I couldn't have done it in any other country, and so I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something too that people don't understand. Like, I look at people today, like the kids today versus the kids of 1940. Like, could we win World War II with today's America's youth? I mean, would we storm the beaches of Normandy?
Well, I mean, again, maybe not storm the beaches of Normandy, but I think the technology is so sophisticated today, and thank God, there are Carl Higbees on our planet that are geared up that could handle that fight. And so I don't want to count us out, but I do get the point. The point you're making is that we've gotten a little bit softer and we've gotten a little bit more entitled. I think that's a very, very good point. I think it's very, very damaging. My oldest son, who, I don't know, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but I don't mind. It'd probably be like a child abuse story, but I would never let him beat me in basketball. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, 6 years old, I was hitting him in the head with the ball, fouling him. 11 years old, smacking him around, jumping over him. And because my thing was he had to earn it, And then in the 12th grade, and my knee was a little sore, we were tied up 19-19. I hit like this outside shot and won 21-19. Yeah. That's the last time I played him in basketball. Okay?
Go out on a winning note.
And he says to me that the metaphor of that has helped him in his life because he's not entitled. I've been beating his brains in from day one. And so my whole thing is like, I don't want my kids being the type of people that they're born on third base and they think they hit a triple. Right. I want them standing at the plate taking swings.
Yeah, I mean, I was a state champ wrestler in high school. Ironically, started off at 112 and somehow made my way up to my 250 that I'm now. But some of the best lessons I learned were from the matches that I really got my ass kicked.
Right.
And that's something like if you can take that kind of one-on-one, it is 100% your fault if you lose ass kicking and get up and back and get back at it. And that's part of the reason why I'm jumping back into this now because the media, when they hit you with something, they want to take you out of the fight. They want to silence you, suppress you, get you out of the fight so they can move on to the next person. I'm not going away. Guys like us are fighters. And
they want to build you a shame box. They're like, okay, we're going to shame and humiliate you. Here's your shame box. Here's your dunce cap. Go stand in the corner, and I got the shame box around you. And you're not that kind of person. I'm not that kind of person. So, in a couple of years, it'll just be another notch on your belt. But I will say this. You are a great American, and you are a guy that has a tungsten steel jaw. So you can get hit and you come right back up. There's no glass in you. So I see a lot of guys that get hit by the media and they're running for cover. I see somebody like you take a couple hits in the media, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. You got so many people that like you. Okay, one of the biggest risks out there of people listening to this podcast, don't alienate people. Because when you alienate people, you can go full Spitzerization. Okay? You remember Elliot Spitzer? Elliot Spitzer's trying to redeem himself now, but he didn't have a lot of friends back in the day when he blew up as the New York State governor. Right. And so when he was coming down, there was nobody out on the air defending him. You got a lot of people that like you. I'm sure you got a ton of guests that are going to come on this podcast. They're going to do it for you. Yeah. And the message to your listeners is, hey, man, don't alienate people. Yeah. Okay, be a good friend. Be someone that's out there to help other people because life's going to go up and down. And in your down moment, you want people running towards you, not running away from you.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I've found that. I've been very fortunate. My parents brought me up right. They, always shake someone's hand, look them in the eyes, be polite and stuff like that. And that's something that you're right. It has really helped me out, especially with this rebound. We've got Governor Mike Huckabee, who's committed. He's done an interview with me, and Judge Janine Pirro on her new book, and a couple other folks. And something though that is, really really nice is I'd love to talk to like this guy, Kaczynski at CNN. He's the guy who wrote who uncovered this stuff on me. And I say it uncovered. They found it in 2012. In 2014 when I ran for Congress, it came out, nobody cared. When I joined the campaign, it came out, nobody cared. When I get appointed, everybody cares. I'd love to have him on the podcast. I'd love to cross that dialogue and say, hey, look, man, let's talk about it. I want to know how you did it. I want to know, tell your story. Like I'm not,
everybody. Have you asked them?
No, not yet. I'm going to.
All right, good.
But every people make mistakes, myself included. And that's the mark of, I think, what America was founded on. It's like America took the mistakes of the entire world, all the social experiments, all the governmental experiments of monarchies and socialism, and they took the best of everything and they put it together. And that's what America is. Like, learn from your mistakes.
Well, yeah. Listen, I think it's very admirable of you, and I think that we're a Christian nation. We're a Judeo-Christian nation, or let's say now, to be super politically correct, a Judeo-Christian culture. At least the foundation principles are that. And the key concepts in life that I think are the best concepts to live by are forgiveness. And so when you forgive somebody else, you are releasing all of that poison, all that gas in your personality. There's a phrase that's attributed to the Buddha. I'm not really sure if he said it, but it's a great phrase that when you're angry, it's a poison that you're drinking, hoping that the other person dies.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you got to release all that anger. And the other thing about forgiveness, the number one thing you got to think about with forgiveness is you got to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, because there are going to be things in your life that you do that you're disappointing yourself. You can't hang a millstone on your neck of regret and woe, because that's a disaster.
Yeah.
One of the best quotes I've read in my life was from Lao Tzu, ancient Chinese philosopher. Don't think too much about the past, you're depressed. Don't think too much about the future, you get anxious. Just live in the present.
Yeah, I mean, that's greatest advice I've gotten from people is people like you who have just been like, honestly, a lot of people have just told me, you know what, screw them, just keep going, keep driving. And I mean, when I was a SEAL, it was the same thing. It was, you get shot, you lose a guy, shit happens, and you gotta power on. And but always the thing about SEALs is like we made plenty of mistakes, but the trick is learning from and getting up and getting back on your horse.
One of your friends, I think it was Rob O'Neill, said to
Great
me,
guy.
you gotta. The SEALs view it this way: you got to eat an elephant one bite at a time. Have you heard that expression before? That's a SEAL expression.
Oh yeah,
right.
So, yep. And sometimes before you take that first bite, that elephant's running you over. So you got to get back up. So I want to talk about some other crazy stuff that we're seeing in this whole thing today. It's like this Russia story. They're covering the Russia thing. Russia. My initial reaction is always to give. I love this president. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. Like, I could not do what he is doing, and the guy could have retired on a beach with a margarita. And he's doing this for America and just getting kicked. I mean, lost $1 billion in net worth. When I see something that maybe doesn't ring right, or maybe I'm confused about, I always give him the benefit of the doubt. I said, is there something behind the scenes that I don't know, won't know, shouldn't know, can't know, and that he is doing this for the betterment? Because he's never done anything that's not for the best interest of the United States.
Well, I mean, I would even add to that. I would say that there's a lot of stuff that he's doing that may not be in his own best interest, but is actually in the best interest of the United States. And a lot of these politicians really only care about themselves.
Yeah.
When the president is making a decision, and he said this, I think, on Twitter last week. He said that it would have been easier for me politically not to have taken the meeting. Yeah. But I am pursuing peace and not my own self-preservation in politics, and so you have to admire him for that.
Yeah, he had a phenomenal quote. I wish remembered what it was, but basically he's like, am I going to sacrifice everything for politics, or am I going to sacrifice politics for everything? And there's security of the United States, and it's something I don't think a lot of people get, especially, not just media, but I think people in general are they're afraid to make a wave. Even if the end result is far better, they're afraid to make that initial wave that might solve the problem.
I agree, and I think that the thing about him that I find fascinating and very enjoyable is that he's not really a politician. I mean,
he's definitely not a politician.
And so what's great about him is he's like one of the most successful politicians ever.
Yeah.
He's not really a politician, so it really drives the quote-unquote politicians crazy, right?
Yeah.
They're upset. How did this guy that was living in that tower across the street descend on Washington after 17 months of campaigning? He went from zero political experience to the American presidency. And he's the only one. Dwight Eisenhower, Andrew Jackson, they were generals. They had worked for the American government. I mean, this guy went from zero into the American presidency. Right. So, you have, whether you like him or dislike him, you have to tip your cap to him.
It's also getting things done. I mean, like, the guy gets things done. I always tell people, I work with dozens of candidates across the United States, and still, now some more so behind the scenes. But I always tell people, I'm like, I have a clock tower theory. Every town, local yoke town, has a clock tower that's been broken for 50 years that every politician says, hey, I'm going to fix that clock tower. Nobody ever fixes it. I said, be the guy before you run. Just fix it. Just fix it. And then you can say, I did that. Have something that people can touch that you accomplished. President Trump was the New York City skyline, and people, that's a results-driven thing.
Yeah.
In politics, you don't actually have to do anything. Like, literally, the less you do, the longer you will survive. And
well said.
Yeah, I mean, if you
going to run for office, Higbee?
I ran in 2014 for Congress. I would run for office.
And what district did you run in?
Connecticut 4, Hymes's district.
Okay.
I was 29. That's actually the same time that I had the podcast. A little before that, I had the podcast when I was 28, and it was an interesting experience. I did it to get the experience. I knew I wasn't going to win. Raised just under $100,000, but yeah, I'd run again. Maybe we'll hit you up for a an event
for campaign donation.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
problem. I'm always good for those. I probably shouldn't say that on your podcast.
Locked in.
They know my number anyway. These guys find you, man.
No,
if they're running for office, they find you. Trust me.
Well, I'm not even a wealthy guy. I get hit up for people. Be like, hey, all I need is like $2,700. I was like, $2,700 donation. That's a lot of money. Like, what do you think I am? Oh, you're on TV. You got to be rich. No, I'm not rich. I'm a normal guy. I'm paying the bills. So, speaking of paying the bills, Trump's tax cuts, round 2.
Yeah.
This is something, I was talking to somebody the other day about the Democratic Party platform is create higher paying jobs. That's what this tax cut did. And, I don't understand why the left can't even run with the good things Trump has done. Like, why can't they say, you know what, we don't agree with the guy on 98%, but this 2% is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, why can't they get over that?
Well, because it goes back to Bush versus Gore. It's my honest opinion. That was a close race. Many Democrats feel that Gore should have won that race. It went down to the Supreme Court.
Wire, yeah.
And so I think we've had this struggle, this extreme struggle, really emanating from that race. And so it's 17, 18 years later, every little tidbit and thing matters. And so these guys are colliding each other with a force that they think is going to make their side win. Now, I will tell you this, they have also discovered that the higher the volume, the higher the polemics, the more protests, the more hysteria about stupid things related to the Supreme Court or otherwise generates money.
Yeah.
You may have saw that Nancy Pelosi robo-signed form letter. It was like some hysterical thing. It turned out that they had to modify because it wasn't 100% true. But it was like, that's how they raise their money. That's their business model.
Emotion. I mean,
motion, and also, listen, I mean, your listeners are high information voters, but most Americans are working and they're trying to raise their families, and they're low information voters, and so they're typically making these voting decisions off of a emotion, feeling, or an intuition about a candidate.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I see so much of this crap, and it drives me bananas. Like, when I work with these candidates, they're like, well, I have the greatest policies. It's like, you may have the greatest policy in the world, but if you're out on the campaign trail lecturing people, you're not going to get anywhere. You gotta appeal to people's hearts. People have to like you first, then they have to want to listen to you, and then they'll follow you.
And drop the sanctimony. And here's the other thing I would also tell you: if you're a politician, don't judge people.
Yeah.
Because they don't like being judged.
Nope.
I think these politicians that try to portray themselves as perfect and all this sort of nonsense, just knock it off. Because the average American's not perfect. They also know you're not perfect, so just take it chill.
Well, that's the thing too. Is about
that also helped the president. You know that, right?
Oh,
because it's like here I am, warts and all, and I'm steaming into your town. I'm steamrolling my opponent as I get into your main square.
Well, and I tell I always talk to people. When I was with America First, after I left the administration, I was there for a couple months, and I went around the country, and you get outside the Beltway. Inside the Beltway, everybody's freaking out. Oh my God, Republicans are going to lose the House. We're going to lose the Senate. It's going to be crazy. You step 20 minutes outside the Beltway, people are like, yeah, Trump, yes. Republicans in House, Republicans in Senate, yeah. I mean, the push against the left. You say Nancy Pelosi's name outside anywhere in any of the 50 states, outside the Beltway, and people are like, absolutely not, hell no, we do not want her. And for so long, until Trump came along, people literally voted for the the candidate that was the least bad. Like, normal people don't run for office because they have jobs and you can't just like uproot your job and go do that. So it was like the candidate that was least bad. Now we're seeing a new wave of people. I
totally agree. He's opened the door. That's why they really dislike him, because he is the first mover in what could be a massive executive insurgency into Washington. Okay, so people are like, wait a minute, I can go here and become successful in the United States and then convert my life into a life of service for my fellow Americans. And so I love that. I love that aspect of the president. And I would also say that the establishment hates that. And by the way, they hate the future left-leaning billionaire or the future right-leaning billionaire. They hate both.
Yeah.
Because they don't want anybody to disrupt their tiny little system, their little business model.
It comes crashing. I mean, like what's her name? Ocasio-Cortez or whatever. I mean, good for her. She's, mildly well-spoken, doesn't know what she's talking about, but mildly well-spoken girl that is good-looking, that went out there and just pounded the streets and got it done.
So I tip my hat to her because she worked super hard. She burned literal shoe leather throughout that district to get those votes.
She's nuts,
and,
but she did.
Joe took it probably not as seriously as he should have. And so there's another big lesson in life. This is another thing I love about the president. The president's playing. He could have 60 points up on a scoreboard. It could be 60-0. The president's playing like he's down 7 with 2 minutes to go in the quarter, and it's the fourth quarter. He leaves everything on the field. He's going right through the wall, and you got to live your life like that, because if you take something for granted, it's going to go against you.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, trust me. I take everything back to the wrestling. 3 out of 5 SEALs were wrestlers, and everything comes back to the fact that like. The second, you could be up 20 points. The second you let your guard down, you lose. Yeah. And
listen, I hear you. Look, here's the thing, though. You got to take risks, though, too, Carl.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to be like, all right, I'll take that risk. If it doesn't work out, you got to be cool with it. If that resiliency, if that persistence. Somebody said, "Man, you've done all these crazy things. You failed at a lot of them." I said, "Yeah, but I've lived this very good life because I'm willing to deal with the failure well."
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah, as long as you're learning from it, it's not really a failure.
Amen.
But yeah, Mooch, I really appreciate it, man. This is a big help for me. You coming on, helping me launch this thing, it means a lot.
Listen, anytime. Here's the thing I would say to you: you are going to develop a phenomenal podcast. You'll be back on television before long. I want you to call Eric Bowling, okay, and get Eric Bowling to do this for you as well.
Yeah, no, I'd love to.
Eric's got an amazing life story, and unfortunately, he just lost his son in the opioid crisis. And he's back out on TV, and I think that you and him would click really well.
I actually ran into him on an Amtrak coming back from DC one day, and I had nothing to say to him other than like, "Hey man, like I'm sorry, you've got my full." It was right after the whole thing, and I can't imagine that having 2 kids like it. It almost makes me a little emotional now, but I'd love to get him on here. I'd love to talk to him about it.
All right. Well, I'm on Team Higbee. Okay, I just want to make sure that
I appreciate it.
I couldn't get on Team 6. I'm a little bit too fat. I probably couldn't hit the side of a barn. Okay, but let me tell you, I'm on Team Higbee.
I talked to your assistant. I said maybe we can schedule this around a workout. We'll go hit the gym first, and then we'll come do this. She said, "No, probably not going to happen."
Yeah, well, not only because I'm like overscheduled, but I did work out this morning. I'm trying to reduce the belly.
Good.
Hey man, God bless.
Thank you for everything. There it is, folks, the first episode of Liberty and Cocktails Down. We appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Carl Higbee or go to www.libertyandcocktails.com. This is Liberty and Cocktails.